Hello, I am Michelle Dickey, your host for CHA's Motivational Monday show on the YouTube channel, Narcissism and Cognitive Dissonance, where trauma healing and spiritual growth are front and center while combating radio frequencies for healthier living. Yes, okay, we normally go live with Motivational Mondays. This one's on my spirit to do a pre-recorded. And part of the reason is because of the nature of the topic, and then also Mondays happen to be during business trip season. Mondays are check-out and check-in days at hotels, and it's not too challenging to get up at 4 and go live when I'm able to check in early enough and get settled in. But sometimes it happens, and so I know I had to cancel one of the Motivational Monday lives and then take a break on some others during the business trip season. So it's going to benefit to have some pre-recorded to drop in the slot at the time that we will go live. And this one here is to motivate you all. How we talk about keep it moving, and you are about to see exactly what that looks like and why it's so important that we keep it moving forward and we don't live in the past. We do the self-reflecting that we need to do to connect dots, absolutely. Because, I alluded to this in the Let's Just Chat Live on Sunday, June 15th, 2025. Y'all catch that replay. I alluded to this because we had some fellow warriors who did not know about the Jezebel case study launching a physical assault on yours truly in 2023. In fact, June 15th of 2023, I woke up in the hospital. And so I'm going to give y'all a bit more of that, okay? And I'm going to illustrate how I know I'm not the only one, but I am proof of Matthew 19, verse 26, Mark 10 verse 27, with God all things are possible. Isaiah 54:17, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. Jeremiah 30 verse 17, God will restore our health. He heals our wounds. Okay, yours truly, Jeremiah 30:17 in action. Y'all have been watching it. Those of you who have been with this ministry since the beginning, that's what you've been seeing. And then those of you who joined us later on, and you've been seeing it. Those of you who are joining us later, when you see videos from the end of 2023, 2024 into 2020, because when we started 2025, that's when I was able to start getting back to endurance training. Okay? And then I started to catch on to the place that I was living at. I started to catch on that it was a mini electrocution chamber. And so I talk a lot about that because it's part of our combat against radio frequencies for healthier living, because that's one of the things that the Jezebel case study put a lot of bruises inside this body, because she knew that those bruises would hold salt, right? Yeah, it would hold salt because that's what it is. That's what a bruise is. Okay, it's where your blood pools, right? Yeah, you get a bruise and so it pulls in that spot, and all the salt that's in there is just gonna hang out, and it serves as a magnet for radio frequency poisoning. Okay, for the radio frequency, for the heat. And so I also know that she injected me with a dish because it didn't make any sense. I started thinking about, well, wait a minute. I said, okay, I could see when I started to bloat, and I understood that was water. And I said, okay, I get that. But see, what they told me, she put a wound in the back of my head there. They had to staple it, but that healed and the staples fell out. Okay. Your body gets rid of what it doesn't want or need, but those staples, I learned about thallium, the metal thallium, and how it responds to the low frequency. Yeah, because I remember when I had one of those flawless brow thingies, And this is as I was discovering my ANS, and I was discovering, hold on a minute, because I'm like, I feel my circulation. See, this is the thing. The blessing in disguise, that Jezebel case study had no idea she gave us a bunch of blessings in disguise, because I now know my inner child, and I've been bringing the information and awareness to you all as well. Because once we are connected in mind, body, and spirit, healed from the trauma, we are, we're on the other side of the rainbow, right? We made it to the other side, and we've got that balance between the spiritual and the physical. Well, now you got to become aware of your ANS and how it's responding to things. Because if we don't have that awareness, then that leaves our ANS a little bit vulnerable to be attacked, our physical body. So, and it doesn't have to be hands-on physical, no, because we are exposed to radio frequencies all around us every day. It's a matter of what do we have on the inside. This is why I can bring this to y'all, and I can tell y'all that your body's internal environment has to meet certain criteria, and yours truly, well, it definitely did. But I know that sodium by itself, when I look at the periodic table, just like aluminum, it has a very low atomic mass. So it's not going to serve by itself. It's not going to serve as a strong enough magnet for all this radio frequency to be affecting a body the way that it was affecting yours truly when I was in that so-called luxury studio apartment. No, more about that on the Patreon channel. It was a mini electrocution chamber, the way that it's rigged up. The matrix is rigged for radio frequency poisoning. You just have to know where to look for it. See, that's where yours truly comes in. So that's what I'm saying. Blessings in disguise. And so I didn't start to notice the bruising. Okay. Now, I did notice some bruises when I first woke up that morning because I did a forensic analysis on my own body. And I said, I said, this ain't adding up. So I had to talk with the doctor, and I said, excuse me. I said, her story, it has a bunch of holes in it. I said, I didn't fall down no carpeted stairs, because where's the carpet burns? I had no carpet burns. And so I realized that on my right ankle, okay, take your left hand, take these first 3 fingers and the thumb, wrap around my right ankle. That's the pattern I saw. That's the first thing. And when I saw that, and I took my hand and I matched that pattern, patterns tell a story. I said, oh, okay, because, right, and then I started to discover bruising in between my toes. So that would be indicative of someone pulling. And so every time her hand slipped, her fingers would go right through my toes. Remember now, for those who didn't know, she spiked my drink, but not before I saw the snake pupils. But I got the confirmation that I needed, that she was a Jezebel in the physical. Okay, so that out of the way. God knew He knew I was going to have to do that. I needed to get that confirmation because virtually it was challenging. But I did start to catch on within the first 3 to 4 months. She wasn't serious about healing. I started to feel the mockery, and I started to pick up on the love bombs. So I was like, hold up a second. Yeah, and but we got what we needed. And then also the awareness of our ANS. So as I was laying in the mini electrocution chamber one morning, the high frequency that I heard and I felt right back here at the top of on the right side, you got this little muscle here around the tailbone area there. Okay, I felt a tug, and I mean a strong tug to the really high frequency, a beep. I felt the tug. I went, hold up a second. There you are. And that started the awareness of my ANS right then and there. I said, okay, we had case study, because I could tell when my legs were going numb and then unnumbing. I could feel it. And so I had the staples in my head, and I looked up what kind of metal was in them after I realized, oh, that's thallium. And I had the flawless brow, and it's very low frequency, battery operated. So I was using it. And so all of a sudden I felt my right side going numb again. And I said, hold up a second. I said, what in the world? That's why I looked up. I said, what kind of metal was in them suckers? Thallium. So anyway, so I'm becoming more aware of the radio frequency and the metal connection there. And so it's more, this is more than just my forensic toxicology master's degree talk and God's wisdom and experience. So that's why I tell y'all, when I am sharing these things with you all, it has been quite a journey discovering these things about how the metals and our ANS connected, the salts, and how they respond to radio frequencies, and how it affects our body, the negative effect. And so that was one of the first things, and I said, whoa, okay, hold up a second. And so as I am studying my ANS and learning how because I said, okay, there's more than sodium in here. All right, that's thallium, the staples. All right, okay. And then I'm like, well, hold up a second. I started to notice the bloating happening and other things and just, yeah, I was like, okay, what is going on here? I said, this is more than just sodium. This is way more than just sodium and way more than thallium. I said, because metal toxicity, I mean, I studied that. We had to. Okay, wait, to write about it? I mean, I was like, hold up. And I still got that big green textbook. Oh, of course, I saved my textbooks, y'all. Because this is, it's God had us get this for this exact reason, for such a time as this. To get up here and motivate y'all. I will give you the story that goes with it. Because as I'm doing that, and I'm paying attention to all that, and I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and I'm like, okay, hold on a second. We did a complete dietary reset when I started to notice me bloating out, and I said, hold up a second. I get salt water will do that. But I just knowing, because before all of that, yours truly has been an avid speed walker. I would do the Insanity Max workouts. I was lifting, I was already starting on the 10-pounders at that time. So I knew this body, and I was on the blood type diet. I knew this body, right? We're very in tune with this body. So I could tell that there's more going on than just sodium and thallium. I said, there's way more than that. And so, yeah, she had the type of job, and not only that, you know how narcissists are, they like to have their connection. And so I said, I would not put it past her to have injected me with additional metal toxins. And that's exactly what she did. That's the only way that this body would have held on to that much heat and had that much salt in it. That's the only way. Okay? Because what started happening was I started noticing out and about in the stores how my body, and I could feel the pulls and the tug, and as we started to eat healthier, and we were still walking, and so we were detoxing, but it was a very, very slow process. Because I was in a mini electrocution chamber, and I didn't realize that at the time. But I was like, however long it takes, we were just one day at a time, but I was starting to discover more and more. And then I started noticing bruises. Knees, ankles. Yeah, and so as I started to see the bruises, I said, okay, you know what to do with bruises? Ice pack, right? So yeah, ice pack. So, ice packing, okay, we did that, and on and off, okay, as needed, and that helped, but it still was not, it was not, the bruises just seemed to not want to go away. And I said, okay, what's going on here? What is going on? No pain, though. So that's the real crazy part about it. My ANS was not numbed anymore. I mean, we're very aware of it, and the bruises are coming to surface. So I'm ice packing, and I'm resting them, and I'm getting off my feet and all of that. And I said, okay, but why are they lingering? That's the one thing that I could not figure out until I found a park out in nature, and I started walking it frequently. And I also started taking Boswellia and using arnica. And I know the arnica gel they say, for pain. Well, there was no pain, but there was a lot of muscle stiffness, and then swelling and bruising. So I said, okay, well, we'll get that. I mean, I'm not experiencing any pain. The occasional discomfort from stiffness, yeah. But we knew to stretch it out. We knew what was going on because I know what happened to me. And God kept revealing to me things that she did. With the toilet seat here, that pattern matches there. With some dominatrix type things around my butt, I saw the pattern. And I said, what would go there? Oh, and then she tightened my choker and just other things. She put dimples here she called bruising here and here, just stuff like that. And then where she injected me with the extra metals at my shoulder blade, and then where I felt that tug. And I said, of course. Because that's why, right, and then she also, because she used the toilet seat cover, the pattern, the bruising that I saw on the arms and pattern. So I was just, forensically examining myself on and off here through all of that. But I was also like, okay, studying the metal toxins, and then realizing that mercury, okay, now that was already there because of dental work and the high frequency. I felt the discomfort. I said, oh, mercury response. So all of this is happening simultaneously while I'm still getting up here and building courses and going live and creating content. I'm giving y'all what was happening behind the scenes with all of that. And so it was just quite the journey, though. I mean, we're still endurance training and strengthening and rebuilding and things, but we're at a place now where, okay, it's just we've got the answers that we were seeking, all at the same time with that. And so I was like, okay, once I discovered that she used kind of like a dominatrix type thingy around my thighs, my genital area, she bruised it up pretty good. And then injected me with additional toxins, okay, metals. Because I said, I know this body. And I said, I also know that those injections, that's exactly what it does. It separates you from your locus of control of your muscles. That's what happened. And so all those salt that were in there were serving as a magnet for radio frequency in the stores, wherever I went. And then in that mini electrocution chamber, I was just being zapped while I slept, while I did whatever in there. Okay, periodically. But oxygen. That's why the bruises were lingering as long as they were. It's because my skin was not getting adequate oxygen. So we finally figured that out, and we got the heck out of there, out of that mini electrocution chamber. We got out of there, and we were still okay. But while I was moving out of there, God told me to put those down because we didn't want to burn the muscles that we were beginning to rebuild. And we started doing that with creatine and protein powder. Now, that being said, has been ongoing, okay? And so that was into the beginning of 2025. So he had me put the weight down while I was moving out of there and getting into another extended stay hotel, an actual extended stay. That ended up being another type of electrocution chamber, but differently. It's the fact that the maintenance Jezebel there sabotaged the refrigerator because I started to heal a lot faster. Walking, it was close by that park, and so I was walking the park, and because my body was getting the oxygen. That's where I discovered my glutes were not in alignment. And I said, how did that happen? And then I remembered metal toxicity, radio frequency. My muscles were getting cooked from the inside out. And because she did what she did with those straps, she tightened them as tight as they would go. Okay, just like she tightened the choker. And so she tightened straps around in my gluteal area. She tightened them as tight as they would go because that matched the pattern of the bruising I discovered. And so that over time if I'm not using my muscles correctly, and my posture is poor, what was happening was all that excess salt water, I started to bloat out. And so I was waddling. I wasn't walking right. And so we had to take care of all of that. And I said, okay, now we own it. We got this. And so little at a time, we've been doing what I would call physical therapy. And I looked it up online. I knew the right moves. And then we started doing the squats and just kind of continuing with that protein powder and the creatine. And of course, eating. Okay, y'all. Eating fruits, vegetables, getting that animal protein. And that's right. And then the movement came about through all of this. And I said, okay, we started that movement when I was in the mini electrocution chamber. That's where the movement started. And I didn't realize the significance of it, though, until I got out of there. And I said, oh, my goodness. And I realized that place was depriving my skin of oxygen. I said, we can't be having that. So now I pay attention. I do a thorough assessment in every hotel room, and I find out if there's any places where there's the possibility of oxygen being sucked out of the environment, we tape it up. Okay? Yeah, we don't play. We don't play around. Because we're like, no, we're not going to let you do that. We don't let the devil do that no more. And I said, okay, hold on a second. So we start to see that. And so getting here, and we're doing step therapy, okay, going up and down steps and all of that at this time. So a little at a time. And so I just want to get on here and motivate y'all. It takes time and it takes patience. But, the Bible verses I gave you, meditate on those and remember those are so true. All right. So, and this is what it looked like. I started with the 3-pounders, doing some overhead. Yeah, some 3-pounders with the overhead at the very beginning. That's how we got started. And then I want to say, oh gosh, probably a good couple months or so, with staying with the 3-pounders, but I slowly got introduced to the 5-pounders. And so we started doing the 5-pounders, just regular, curls, just getting used to using those again. Again, still eating and getting the creatine and all of that. And still doing the walking and still doing our stretches and our squats and things like that. And so then we moved up to the 5-pounders. We still use the 3-pounders, okay, for like around the world, stuff like that. Because it doesn't matter the weight, okay, as long the movement. It depends on what your goals are, though, too. All right. And then we started using the 5-pounders more regularly. And again, same thing. It's like I followed the pattern, okay, the order that God ordered it. And so within that second month, we're getting introduced to the 10-pounder again, one at a time, one arm at a time. That's how we got started with the 10-pounder. Then we were able to work our way up to holding both 10-pounders. After that, it took about another month and a half or so, and I was just at the store, and I was like, okay, we got out of that extended stay, and we stayed in 3 different hotels that ended up being hotel case studies for radio frequency and oxygen deprivation and things like that, and then sight manipulation. That's where I learned about the inconsistency in lighting, okay, how it does affect our ANS and in so many ways. And so we learned how to fix that, get around that resistance, and so we didn't allow anything to slow down our progress anymore. And so eventually, I was at the store, and I said, well, am I going to get 2 15? I said, I know we want to get a 15-pounder, and the Lord told me, he said, go ahead and get it. Okay, so I get one. He said, we just get one. Got one 15-pounder, and I did not start on it right away. I have this routine, if you will, whenever we embark on something new. If we are going to up it a notch, with weight especially, and then anything new that we're trying out, we do an introduction. Okay, it's like I like to introduce my body. So it was probably a couple of weeks that 15-pounder just sat there. Okay, and I was like, okay, so when are we going to pick that up? And I said, well, we can do, I said, right now, the best way is to, because we were still just starting on them 10-pounders together now. So I said, okay, the 15-pounder, how are we gonna do an introduction? The Lord said, pick it up, both hands. He said, and we're gonna introduce your body. And you're gonna use the muscles up here that we're repairing, okay, and to build them and to get locus of control of the muscle back, okay, right. Well, see, now, because we detoxed to the point where the only thing lingering now is the sodium, is the salt water. The extra toxins that she injected me with are gone. They've been gone, okay, at the time of this recording. They've been gone for many months, okay. Yeah, they had to have been. We detoxed. We eliminated those because we became aware of them. Once we became aware that she did that, and getting on the superfood juices and vegetables and animal protein, and just really paying attention to what we put in and lowering our salt intake, and get that process rolling, and making sure that our body is getting, our skin is getting the adequate oxygen. So in doing all of that, I said, okay, it's introduction time. And so he said, pick up the 15-pounder, okay, and you're going to do this classic move, right? Just up and down, and you're going to use this. And so now this is what it looks like. And so that is the endurance training journey, that all the way up to as we were detoxing, and believe it or not, in between some of that, we were still ice packing when we first started with the 3-pounders, because we did see that there was some residual bruising, and then we discovered the bruising in the knuckles. And you know those screwdriver kits, okay, where you can change the head of the screwdriver. Okay, well, when you look inside, it's like it looked like a hexagon or whatever shape on the inside. Okay, well, when I first saw the bruises around my knuckle, that's the pattern that it matched as though. So what she did, right, when I went unconscious, okay, the first thing she did, she hit the knuckle areas here with it. All she had to do was press. And then that knuckle area, and then this one. She did all the knuckles on both hands. I discovered that because one of the first things that I was noticing right off the bat was the heat and the stickiness of my hand. And I was like, that's not normal. I said, where is that coming from? I did not know, I did not see those bruises there yet, because my body, in the mini electrocution chamber, my body was being deprived of oxygen. I didn't know that. My skin was. So I was like, okay. And so I didn't see that right away. But I noticed the stickiness. And so then we went through a season where we just basically got our animal protein from like there's a Golden Corral buffet where it has a pot roast. So I would get that, bring it home, and I learned how to microwave it and then let it sit to let the salt evaporate. Okay, and then things like that. But we still had our fruits and our vegetables going and things like that. But we took a short season off of cooking a whole lot to give our hands rest. So we tried to rest our hand for a season. And so then, right, as we got out of there into the next place or whatever, we started getting back into where, okay, we're going to start using our hands again. That's when I noticed them, okay, because my body was getting the oxygen, so oxygen was helping the bruising that was hiding come to the surface where I could see them now. Oh, another reason for the sight manipulation, trying to manipulate my eyesight, because the devil didn't want me to see those bruises. He didn't want me to see, because once we can see something, we know how to self-care. And so that's what we started doing some ice therapy on the hand and things like that. And so over time, because bruises do heal. It's just you got to know they're there. And so the Arnicare gel, I mean, it's, it works wonders. And because you do wash your hands a lot, so putting that on the hand by themselves, well, okay. But, ice therapy, and then resting them where possible, and then learning to be gentle. Again, I realized I was using more force for some activity, than necessary. I didn't need to use that. That was unnecessary force that I was using. And then I also know, for those of you, when you catch some of those older videos in 2024 especially, and there towards the end of 2023, you'll notice that my speech is a little different, because when she bruised up a lot of the body there, and so oxygen was not getting to the brain, and I didn't realize I had a lot of tension going on here. There was bruising there I didn't know about yet at the time, and so my speech was a little off here and there. That's why. It's because of the physical assault, and it's because of the ANS being just say re-traumatized at the time, and I didn't know that my vagus nerve was being stressed out. I learned about that later on, that my vagus nerve was very much stressed out, and that led to a let's just say a short season of some impediments, so to speak, speaking and that, but we still got up and we pushed through. We kept it moving, and we keep it moving even today. And that's why I wanted to get up here and give y'all this Motivational Monday message. And I know those of you who catch it later on, it might be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but whenever you catch it, I just want you to know that yours truly, and like many others, okay, who have gone through something like that, and listen, all things are possible with God. And so, no, I the only thing I did, because when I went down to have the stitches taken out of that wound in the head, they were supposed to take the staples out too. But they said there were no staples there. But I remember feeling the staple gun, and I knew that they were there. But see, you know why? Because the devil wanted that thallium, and he wanted me to keep getting zapped in the head. Because see, what happened with all of that salt and everything, I ended up running on my adrenaline again for a little bit. I had to discover that too, because of all the salt that was up there. I was aware, you know what I'm saying? It's like I have got the heightened awareness, and we're just learning more about it. But I didn't realize that a bunch of the salt and that created excess mucus that got cooked, where, back here, a baby's born with a soft spot, right? Okay, in that particular area, and that's close to the area that she whacked with the glass that she spiked my drink in. I matched that pattern too. So I said, oh, because the shape of the wound, when I was able to see it, when the staple fell out, and I was able to see the shape of the wound, and I said, that's a very unique, it was like a half moon. And I said, hold on a second. And so I had one of those glasses. I normally wouldn't get those, but God had me get it because he knew I was going to have to match that pattern. And I said, oh my goodness, okay. That's exactly what she did, because she knew that where there's an area of injury, that's where salt is gonna, a little bruise there, salt holding there, going to be a magnet for more salt to build up. And so what she was hoping, right, just like the devil was hoping, that I would get cooked from the inside out, which is what was happening a little bit, okay? But God, a just-in-time God, and said, oh, heck no, because we got work to do. I said, we got more courses to build. We got a vision board. We got a huge vision board. And we've got a lot to do. God put us here to serve for the glory of God. We have more to do in the ministry. We have more to bring you all. And I said, we ain't letting this. No. Because she wanted to get me dependent on man. She wanted me to become the human lab rat like the rest of the narcissists. And I said, no. I said, no, 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 and no. So the only professional, if you will, I went to was to get a second opinion about the staple. And he ended up getting me, talked me into letting him draw some blood. Because he was trying to convince me that I had a virus that, by the way, I know did not exist. okay? And that it was just, because I remember telling him, I said, hold on a minute. I said, I thought that was just, I said, I believe that's just lack of oxygen getting there. And he goes, oh, no. I said, you just told on yourself. You just confirmed that that's all it was, is the lack of oxygen getting to my eyes. That's why they were, that's why they were a little bit reddish here and there. It just wasn't enough oxygen getting there yet. And he was like, oh, no. So he wanted to try and treat me for something that doesn't exist and treat me for something I don't have. I knew I didn't have. See, that's what I'm saying, y'all. This matrix out here, if you ain't got nothing wrong with you, they're gonna try to find something wrong with you. They're gonna try to convince you that you got something. Oh, God said you ain't got nothing wrong with you. He said they got everything wrong with them. They got that spiritual wickedness in high places. But chosen ones, no, we are resilient. We will persevere. Because we are going to get through every single storm. And we continue to do so with God. Because with God, all things are possible. And so it don't matter. That Jezebel case study may think that she did us in. But no. It's like I've said before. I said, because when things started to finally come together again. And we started to realize, okay, knowing exactly why she did all that she did. Okay, because she was trying to disfigure yours truly. And wanted me to go to this doctor or that specialist or that specialist. No. She also was thinking that because the devil only knows what used to work in the past, she was also hoping that each time I would experience a radio frequency symptom, that's right, an RF symptom, she was thinking that, maybe I'll go and I'll buy this over-the-counter thing again, or this allergy thing, or this cold thing, or this. No, we let it ride because we knew what it was. We knew about radio frequency poisoning and radio frequency symptoms before she did what she did. We already had that awareness, and then some. And then being aware of what she did, and knowing what she did, and then learning more about what she did, God revealing me, okay, so she put the bruise there. Oh, okay. Ice pack. No biggie. And we kept it moving. Okay? We won't sit there and dwell on it. That's the other thing. As we noted, okay, a little air pocket needs to get out of there. No problem. A little bit of a discomfort. Air pocket. Okay, just walk it out. Walk it out. And then we were able to finally get back into our regular clothes. We had to buy some house clothes to get through the bloating and swelling season. And so we did that. And I have to tell you, it's been a wonderful journey, even though... I was like, all of this should not have taken as long as it did. And that's true, because our bodies are designed to get rid of what it doesn't want and doesn't need relatively quickly, as long as your skin is able to get the oxygen that it needs, and you're able to get the nutrition that you need, and you are in an environment that will allow for that. So you have to keep some things in mind. And, that's why I tell y'all that the devil only has what used to work in the past. And he's tried it all. And what he still tried to do, he, to this day, is like the pattern. And I'm like, that's all you got is that noise. That's all you got, that charcoal smell. That's all you got, one of them animated salt molecules. No, that's all you got, head games. That's all he got is head game and the same old over and over again, because it did work on my ANS in the very beginning until I became aware. That's why I tell y'all often, once you become aware, then that shenanigan can't work on you no more. It's not going to. No weapon formed against thee shall prosper. Once you are aware of it. But see, the devil has that demon of assumption, right? And so because it worked once, he thinks it continues to work because he refuses to see the fact that we can still heal. We get around that resistance, and that no matter what he tries to throw our way, we are going to get through the storm, because with God all things are possible. So I want y'all to keep it moving as always, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you might have. Again, check out the description, okay? You will find links to the Patreon channel, links where you can sow your seeds, service grants, okay? And then also those help to fund the movement, combating radio frequencies for healthier living, because we got more of that coming for you all too. And also, all kinds of content coming. And oh my gosh, don't forget about CHA's Truth Seeker podcast. All right, that rss.com link is listed below. You can also find the My Social page of the website. Okay, yep, in the navigation drop-down menu, you find the My Social, where we are across multiple platforms, but you can also find CHA's Truth Seeker podcast page on the website as well at cdhrwdrmd.org. Sending love and light to all fellow warriors. Thank you for watching, listening, and for your continued support. Till next time, show some gratitude to the Heavenly Father, and you keep being you. In Jesus' name, amen.